Hello there and welcome to this webinar from Salamander Soft about the academic year change. This webinar in the series is about Teams via School Data Sync. My name is Stuart Wilkie, I'm the support coordinator here at Salamander Soft. So during this webinar, questions can be sent via the chat window and we'll attempt to respond to some of these at the end of the webinar, and a summary will be published on our website. A recording of this webinar will also be made available once the event is finished. So an overview of our processes for Teams for Education via School Data Sync. Teams are managed and provisioned by the School Data Sync service using information provided to it by the integration suite. We provide this in the format of CSV files. School Data Sync itself uses a cache within the sync profile to record the last expected state of the classes, i.e. the names and the members. The sync profile has an expiry setting which controls when to stop accepting data and stop the processing. The sync profile also controls whether teams can be renamed by teachers. If this setting is enabled, then the team can be renamed by the teacher. If it isn't, a rename is still possible. However, when School Data Sync processes again, it will rename the team back to its original name. Manual changes to membership are preserved as School Data Sync doesn't know about them because of the cache that I mentioned. So, a teacher can add or remove members via the Teams interface, and School Data Sync won't remove them. If a member is removed, School Data Sync also won't add them back in, as it doesn't know that they were removed. The one exception to this is if a member is added or removed, and then they appear in the data again later on after they were removed from the data. So, for example, Joe Bloggs was added to the class. They're not in the class yet, but they're then added to the class file in the MIS, and are then removed from the class again later on in the MIS. They would then be removed from School Data Sync. So as a quick demo, I'll quickly show you the SDS portal. Here is the School Data Sync dashboard. It is accessed via sds.microsoft.com. You'll see that we have a couple of expired profiles and a couple of profiles that are in the ready state. You may also see other states here. A yellow exclamation mark indicates there are warnings on the profile, and a red cross indicates that the profile has issues which are preventing it processing. Also at this point, I'd like to highlight some of the Microsoft documentation which we recommend you read. This can all be accessed at docs.microsoft.com. If you search Docs and School Data Sync, it'll take you to this page. There's a really handy overview of how School Data Sync works, as well as a click-through as well. The last part is what we're going to be discussing today is the term transition management, which explains the life cycle of classes, how to set expiry dates within the profile, shown on screen currently, what happens when the sync reaches that expiration date, how to start your new academic year, and the cleanup actions. So, what challenges can we face with School Data Sync when it comes to the end of the academic year? The first challenge is that the Year 11 and the Year 13 classes have been taken off the timetable or ended in the MIS. The second challenge is related to this. The Year 11 or Year 13 pupils have had leaving dates set which have passed, i.e. the pupils have been taken off roll. The third issue you can face is that you're promoting your classes early. For example, you're going to use your next year's timetable, i.e. the September timetable, during the latter part of the summer term. And the fourth issue we'll look at today is if you need to create your teams for the next academic year early, for example, during the summer holidays. So we'll focus on the first issue to start with, the Year 11 and Year 13 conundrum. A reminder, the two issues we're looking at here are the Year 11 and Year 13 classes have been taken off the timetable, or the Year 11 and Year 13 pupils have had leaving dates set which have now passed. If either of these two situations occur, the effect is the same. The teams for these classes in these year groups will have their membership removed, either as the classes no longer appear in the MIS information we retrieve, or that membership is empty. To avoid this, you have three main options. The first of these is that where supported, you can choose to suspend the classes rather than actually ending them. The second, and the option we recommend, is that you set the expiry of the sync profile to be a date before the change is made. The third option, often used in combination with the second, is that you stop the upload of the information to School Data Sync via our Status Viewer application. I'll show you our Status Viewer application towards the end of this webinar. The second situation you may face is if you need to promote your classes early. So you're going to teach your next year's timetable at the end of the summer term. The effect here is that you can get teams being confused. The teams for the classes for this academic year are confused with the teams for the classes for the next academic year. So your Year 7 classes may be empty. Your Year 8 teams have the Year 7s within them, the Year 9 teams have the Year 8s within them, and so on. To avoid this situation, again, you have two options which you saw earlier on. You set the expiry of the sync profile to a date before this change is made. That will prevent the data being uploaded. You can also stop the upload of information via a Status Viewer application. And once both of these have been done, you can create a new sync profile, which will allow us to upload the teams to the next academic year early. So what can we do if these situations have affected you? Well, depending on your MIS, we can bring the members back into the teams from the previous circumstances. The notable exception here is ISAMS, which doesn't support us being able to retrieve the classes from an earlier date. So how do we do this? Well, we need to know the date the change was made, and we'll then set this date within our configuration so that we force our process to retrieve the data from that date. We will then send this information to School Data Sync, and then set the expiry of the sync profile to be the next day. We'll also stop the upload of our data. Please note that this change may take up to 72 hours to be reflected in School Data Sync. Then the next steps are, you'd need to complete the end of years processes on the School Data Sync profile that has expired, and we would help you create a new sync profile for the teams for the new academic year. When it comes to archiving, once a sync profile is expired, you can then perform the manual end of year tasks. I'll show you this in the SDS portal shortly. You have two main options. I'm going to exclude the center option for the moment, as Microsoft are currently working on a fix for this. You can choose to rename the team, which adds the EXP underscore and then the month and the year that the expiry is processed. You can choose to archive, which marks all the content read-only. And all this work is done within the SDS portal at sds.microsoft.com. So at this point, we're looking at the Run Cleanup Actions area. When a profile is expired, it will look similar to this, and it will tell you the profile is expired and is no longer being synced, and that you have options that you need to complete. You can choose to unlock the profile, which will just carry on as before, or you can then run the cleanup and then start your new term or year. If you unlock, all your teams that you've had for this academic year will remain as they are. Then the data will upload and will carry on processing. However, your teams for the previous academic year may have their members cleared when the new data is uploaded, as remember, SDS uses a cache, and last year's teams will no longer be in the data. As I said, the highlighted area shows that your options for the classes that are expired and what you can do with them. Once the sync cleanup is running, it will tell you that it is complete, and you can then choose delete it and create a new sync profile. You can also then start the sync profile by setting a new expiry date. So a question we get a number of times from customers, what about if you have a class that runs for 2 years? Well, teams like a school day sync profile are only designed to live for an academic year, as you'll have seen. You have a couple of options to choose from if you want to maintain your previous year's teams. You can choose not to rename and not to remove the members. It is recommended that you archive these so it avoids the changes being made in the wrong team, as then at least the teams are marked read-only. It's important to note that any membership changes to these teams would need to be made manually by the teachers. A new sync profile would also be needed each year to prevent an issue where the cache no longer has the team within it, and therefore when you send the data, that members are then cleared. So, you're ready to start your new academic year, either at the end of the summer term or throughout the summer holidays. What do you need to know? First, once your new class lists are ready, we can prepare the information for school date sync. It's important to discuss your timetable, how they're preparing for the new academic year, so you can have everything ready in terms of dates. How? We'll need to know the date when the new classes start. We then set our process to use the new academic year prefix or suffix, depending what your format is, and we'll assist you in creating a new sync profile where you're not going to reuse the previous year. And the effect then is the new teams will often create in around 72 hours, and a reminder that these need activating by the teacher. I've mentioned our status view application a number of times. What is it? Our status view is a light touch application for viewing and controlling some elements of the integration suite. Particularly this summer, we've added a number of areas of functionality for school data sync. You can view and disable the SDS upload status simply by clicking a button. You'll also be able to view the CSV files which we upload. We store these on your machine every day. If you need to change your sync profile name, either because you're creating a new sync profile under our advice or from Microsoft because of an issue with your existing profile, you can update the sync profile name that we're using. And lastly, the area we've worked on this year, we've added the option for removing and adding include lists, as well as exclude lists. These are often used for pilots. Here is our status view application. You'll see I've currently loaded it onto the school data sync page, and that the school data sync upload is currently enabled. To disable it, if you know that you're going to be making a change to your data, for example, just choose the disable button and accept the prompt. You'll notice the data sync is now disabled. You can quickly enable it again and accept the prompt if you're sure you're ready to continue. Where school data sync is configured, you'll also have a View Files button that appears here as well. As mentioned, you can view and change the SDS profile name, and the bottom of the screen allows you to set exclusions. At the moment, currently 7.8EM1 is excluded, or you could choose that there's no restrictions or choose a list to include, and this can be classes or subjects. For more details on our status view, you can find this on our website. So, a quick recap of what we've seen today. I've shown you an overview of how our school data sync processes work for teams, and the 4 common situations which can also occur, including options for recovery. I've shown you the school data sync profile and the portal, and where you complete the archiving and end-of-year steps, including the documentation from Microsoft, which steps you through this process. I've mentioned the issue with 2-year classes and what options you have for these, as well as how you can get ready for the next academic year. I showed you the School Data Sync tab within our Status View application. And that brings to an end this webinar. You can find further details about our School Data Sync processes at the end of the academic year via our FAQs, a link to which is shown on screen at the moment. A link can also be found at www.salamandersoft.co.uk/support. I hope you found this webinar useful. And if you need anything further, please feel free to contact our team via support@salamandersoft.co.uk. This webinar has been a re-recording of the existing webinar due to issues which occurred within the previous recording.